So good morning, everyone. My name is Patty Hubbard, and I'm the Outdoor Recreation Grant Planner at Missouri State Parks, and this is the 2026 Grant Application Workshop for the Environmental Review section of the LWCF Grant Application. This is a reminder, this is going to be over the Environmental Resource Survey section, which is questions 75 through 82. So please make sure that you are focusing all your questions today on those sections alone. Reminder that this process, there are several processes in this section that take 30 days, so you want to start on this early. Applications, 2 hard copies of the application plus the supporting documentations must be postmarked or received by us by November 14th, 2025. So before we dive into the application itself, we're going to talk about why the LWCF grant is required to do an environmental review. Enacted in 1970, the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA for short, is a federal law that requires federal agencies to assess the environmental effects of their proposed actions prior to making a decision to undertake that action. For the Land and Water Conservation Fund, federal NEPA approval is required because these are federal funds coming from the Department of the Interior. NEPA is often considered an umbrella law because it encompasses requirements that are included in a variety of other federal environmental laws. The purpose of the environmental resource section of this application is for you to provide documentation on the impact that your project will have on the environment. This is a list of the different types of resources that you will be evaluating during your NEPA process. So you're going to be looking at the historic and archaeological and cultural resources, threatened and endangered species, jurisdictional waterways, including lakes, rivers, streams, and wetlands, the water quality, floodplains, migratory birds and bald and golden eagles, air quality, hazardous waste sites, prime and unique farmland, low income and minority populations, noise levels, recreation or user access, travel pattern, assurances of public and tribal involvement, and others. A qualified specialist should be used in determining the impact on these resources. If a specialist is hired to complete the environmental section of this application, this is eligible as a pre-award cost for the grant. You just need to make sure that you fill out question 72 in the application and make sure that you add it to the budget narrative, which is 74. One thing I do want to remind everyone is that tribal consultation is initiated by the National Park Service. So please do not reach out to the tribes. Do not send them letters saying that you're doing a project. If your project is selected to move on to round 2, at that point, the National Park Service will start the consultation with the tribes. So most of our LWCF projects are category exclusions, or CEs, meaning they are excluded from further review. The answers that you provide in this application will help us make our recommendation to the National Park Service. And then the National Park Service will be the ones who make the final determination based off the information that you provide and that we provide to determine if your project qualifies as a category exclusion. And they do this based off of, they have an approved list of actions based off of prior experience with similar actions that do not impact the environment. And so they can classify these as CEs. So the environmental review section starts on page 38 or Adobe page 61 of the OPSP Appendix B. The questions 75 through 84 comprise the environmental resource section of the grant application. The tables provided in this section serve as a record of the environmental resource present at the site. Whether the proposed action is likely to have a significantly negative impact on these resources or whether further information is needed to determine the potential impact. Review the listed resources and identify any resources that may be significantly impacted by your project. Do not include short-term impacts as negative impacts unless a federal permit is required to satisfy those impacts. The environmental resources survey should be completed with professional input from resource experts and in consultation with relevant local, state, and federal governments as appropriate. Remember that the costs associated with hiring a firm or individual to complete your environmental review can be used as a pre-award cost. Before you start to answer the questions in this section, you will need to determine what your area of potential effect, or the APE, will be within your park. If this is a 1 to 3 acre park, the APE might be the entire park. If you have a large park and are only constructing in one area of the park, your APE will be smaller than the entire park. Within the APE, you should include the location of all construction activities, the staging area where equipment will be stored, and the location where any excessive soil will be dumped within the park. On this slide are two examples of the APE. The top right shows the entire park will be the APE, and staging will occur within that area. The left photo is a 15-acre park, and only the playground is being constructed with the project, so the APE and staging area are smaller than the entire park. Here's an example of a very large park, and construction will be taking place in two different locations in the park. I have included a staging area for each of the construction sites. When you are creating the environmental review maps, some of the maps get a very close-up view of the project, so you might have to have two different maps to show each of your APEs. Then on some of the maps, you can zoom out and include both APEs in one map. You would then just draw the two ATPs on the one map. The yellow line represents the area that I would draw on the environmental map for this area that will be cleared during the environmental review. Remember that bigger area is always better. If you don't clear an area now, then if you need to move to that area later, you will have to put your project on hold and we will have to complete an entirely brand new environmental review. So once you have this figured out, you can start then on the environmental section of the application, because you will need to know how to draw what your area is in order to draw it on the maps and stuff that we're going to be doing in the next section. So question 75, which is table 1, let's first note that this is one of the biggest changes you're going to see from last year's application to this year's application. Instead of just 3 boxes, you now get a choice of 5. So you can be a positive impact, a negative impact, no impact, not present, or an unknown impact. Every resources will now have a box that is checked. For each resource, indicate if your scope will have a positive, negative, or no impact on that resource. If you do not have enough information to make that determination, you would check unknown impact. In the rare case where the resource is not within the park, mark as not present, such as the coastal zones. And I'll show that when we get to it. You will need to write a justification on how you made the determination of the impact for each resource. If you choose unknown impact, explain to us what other research needs to be done in order for you to make a determination. Note, if you have too many negative impacts or unknown impacts within this table, the project will not qualify as a category exclusion, and you will be required to complete an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement. On page 38 to 41, or Adobe page 61 through 64 of that Appendix B, there are several links for the environmental review maps and websites that will help you with each of these environmental resources. All maps and correspondence with other agencies should be included with supporting documentation. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at these on an individual thing. So for air quality, most projects are exempt from air quality conformity requirements of the Clean Air Act unless they are in a regionally significant area as defined by 23 CFR 450.104, such as St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, or Joplin. If the project is within these areas, you should contact your metropolitan planning organization to find out what kind of impact you will have or what requirements you have. The link to the Metropolitan Planning Organization is on page 38 or Adobe page 61 of Appendix B. If your project is outside the regional significant area, you will mark no impact, and you would write a simple statement saying, our project is not located within a regionally significant area, so we will have no impact on air quality. Now, if you are going to be burning during your project for clearing and stuff like that, then you could be having an impact on air quality, and you would need to be contacting the Department of Natural Resources to get your permit for burning. Number 2 is circulation and transportation. So are you adding parking or an accessible route to the park? So if you don't have those already, that's a positive impact. Are you adding a trail to your park to add for that accessibility and walkability of your park? Remember, you are required to have accessible routes from all facilities that are receiving grant funding to the ADA parking spot. Number 3, climate. Take a look at how you answered question, and I believe it's 71, to see if you had any positive impacts to this project. Number 4 is hazardous materials. You will need to visit the Missouri DNR Missouri eStart website to get a map to make the judgment on here. And on the next slides, I'm going to show you how to pull that map. And finally, we have endangered species. You will need a copy of your IPAC report, your D-Key determination if you had to do one, and your Missouri Heritage Report, and all the communications with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Department of Conservation. And I'm going to show you in the next several slides how to pull these reports as well. So here is an example of what your hazardous waste map will look like. When you get to Missouri eStart website link, and the link is on page 38 of Appendix B, type the park address in the search and hit enter. Zoom the map in so the entire park is located on the screen. If you zoom in too far, a table is going to pop up at the bottom. So zoom out once and close that table so you get a bigger view. Click the box next to the hazardous substance investigation in the key and the regulatory petroleum and hazardous substance storage. That will illuminate all those boxes, and all the boxes will be checked. Wait a few minutes for the fields to populate on the map. Once they do a screenshot or snippet the entire page, including the legend. You want to snip it so that you have this much in your map, okay? Convert the snippet to either a PDF or Word document and print in color. Draw the APE on the map by hand, or you can draw the APE using Adobe Tools. This map must be included with your supporting documents. If there is a symbol from the legend within your project area, your APE, or is very close to your APE, click on that symbol on the map and then click Summary Page. Towards the bottom of the new screen, it will say, click here to download a PDF of this site. Include that with your supporting documentations. If you have no hazardous sites within your project area, within your APE, you would simply write as a statement, based off of the hazardous waste map, there are no hazardous materials within our site, and you would mark no impact. Here is how to get your IPAC report. The link to the website is on page 39 or Adobe page 62 of the Appendix B. You will need to log into the site to get the report. So if you have not been on this site before, you will need to set up an account before you start this process. Once you have logged in, follow the steps on the left-hand side. So for one, you're going to type in the address of the park and zoom in the map so that you can see the area of the park that you will be affecting. So you're going to draw it around your APE. Make sure that you're including that staging area too. If you have a small park, I recommend that you go ahead and just include the entire park. If it's a very large park, make sure that you include extra area. Remember, bigger is always better when you're drawing your APE. If you have two areas, I would go ahead and draw one polygon around the whole entire area to include both. So number 2, use the polygon to draw the area around your project. Double click to stop drawing. Then 3, click Continue. When the next page opens, click Define the project. Then you will add the title from section 54 of the application and the entire scope of work from question 59 and the location of the park from question 12. Then click Save. On the next screen, click Start Review. A new screen will appear. Click Continue. When you get to step 1, click Yes, request a species list. Then it will ask if you require an official species list. Click Yes. Then click Yes because federal funds are being used on this project. The federal agency is the National Park Service. Then it asks, does this project fall under any of the following special projects? The answer is none. And then it will say, what kind of organization are you working directly for? Select the type from the list. So if you are a city, if you're a county, find it in the drop-down menu and click it. Then the next question says, is there another? In the next question, select, there is another agency that is the lead agency. And it will ask, are you the designated non-federal representative? Your answer is no. Your role is the applicant. And then fill in the state and the city that you are with, or the agency that you're with. Then it will ask about the lead agency. Click federal agency and then choose National Park Service. In the next screen, fill your contact information. For the project type, you will then select either recreation, maintenance and modification, or recreation new construction. Click on Submit Official Species List. You will then need to wait a couple of minutes while the report is being generated. Usually it takes anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. Once the species list is ready, it will appear in blue under the list request completed, as you see here. Click on the PDF and download it and print it off. It will be about 5 pages. The official species list is going to look very similar to this. This is about 3 different pages of it. If there is a watermark that is going across this report that says not for consultation, you have pulled the incorrect report. Okay, so you need to go back where we were just at and request a official species list. Okay, the IPAC report will be several pages and will list all the threatened and endangered species within your project area. You will also be able to see if you have any critical habitats within the area. You use this information to write a letter to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. A template letter is on page 20 or Adobe page 43 of that Appendix B. A letter must be written to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife if you have any species listed on the IPAC, and especially if you are going to be removing any trees. If you have tree removal as part of your project, it should be listed in the scope of work, and you will need to make a commitment not to remove trees except between October 15th and March 30th. If you are removing a building, such as a restroom, that has been vacant for a long time, you will need to make this same commitment in order to protect the bats. If you are not removing trees, just state briefly what your scope of work is for the project and list all the species from the IPAC report in that letter to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Along with the letter to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, you should include a copy of your LWCF boundary map, a map that shows the APE and the staging area for your project, mark any trees that will be removed, and a location map that is zoomed out that gives address of park, latitude and longitude, township, range, and section. The map should also show if there are any caves within a 1 to 2 mile radius of your park. Creating the Missouri Heritage report will follow very similar directions as to what you did for the IPAC. You will need to log in to the Missouri Department of Conservation website and draw the project area and fill in the information requested, just like you did for the IPAC report. Then they will send you a report via email. The report will look very similar to this. The Department of Conservation has 3 different levels that the report can be. It can be a level 1, 2, or 3. Each level tells you who you need to contact for further coordination. You can use the U.S. Fish and Wildlife letter and edit it to send it to the Department of Conservation. Information about where to send the letter is provided in the report. So as you can see, level 1, you will have no contact. You don't need to contact or reach out to them any further. If you are a level 2, you have to reach out to the Missouri Department of Conservation. And level 3, they recommend that you do both conservation and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which you will already be contacting U.S. Fish and Wildlife for either one of these levels. And just remember that all those reports have to be in with your supporting documentation. So number 6, you're going to look at the geological resources. So will this project be changing the slope of the land? Are you developing a rain garden to help control the runoff from your parking lot or from other areas of your project? Number 7, historic and cultural resources. So as part of the environmental review process, you will need to initiate a Section 106 review with the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO for short. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act requires federal agencies to consider the effects on historic properties present in projects they carry out, approve, or fund. The State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, is the agency authorized for ensuring Section 106 compliance. To initiate a Section 106 review, submit a Section 106 review and compliance information form to SHPO. Instructions for completing and submitting the forms are found on their website. There is a link in your guide to their website. On the form, it will ask about federal involvement. The answer is yes, and the federal agency is the National Park Service. You can leave the federal agency contact person name, email, and phone number blank, but make sure you tell them this for the National Park Service. In the next section after that, it asks for contacts you want to CC. I ask that you please add my name, Patty Hubbard, and I am with Missouri State Parks, and my email address to your form. This will allow me to get the letter that they send to you. You will also be required to submit topographic maps of the site, your APE map, the scope of work of the project from question 58. This should include project area size and depth you will be digging in the soil, and photos of the existing area. Upon receipt of this information, SHPO has 30 days by law to review and send you comments. Once you have your scope of work nailed down, you can start this project, but you have to have your scope nailed down so that they review your entire scope of work. It will take 30 days to receive a response back from SHPO after they receive your packet that you're going to email to them. So let me stress that if SHPO determination is not included with your application packet when you submit it to us, the application cannot be scored. So submit your SHPO packet early. Do not wait until the end of October to submit the form, or it will be too late. SHPO letters are good for 3 years. If your scope of work has not changed from submitting it last year, then you do not have to redo your Section 106 and you can use the same letter. If you updated your scope of work any, which means are you now including accessible routes because you forgot to last time, you do need to resubmit and tell them that this is a revised project from what you submitted last year. And that response, they have 30 days to respond. If the information you provided is significant to make a determination, SHPO will send you a letter with that determination. Include a copy of the SHPO letter along with your entire Section 106 review packet that you sent to them with your supporting documentation. National Parks wants to see the packet of information that you submit to SHPO to make sure that you included the entire scope of work for SHPO to review. And that is why we ask that you submit not only the letter, but that entire packet that you emailed to SHPO. If the information you submitted is not significant to make a determination, SHPO will send you a letter requesting additional information or may require that a professional archaeologist or archaeological historian conduct a cultural or archaeological survey. Coordinate with SHPO on the requirements of the survey and completing a Section 106 survey memo form. Once the survey has completed and reviewed by SHPO, indicate the determination results from the survey and attach the concurrence letter from SHPO and a copy of the survey. And if they ask you to do a cultural resource survey, that can be a pre-award cost for your grant. So you can add that in as pre-award. If your project has adverse effect determination, further consultation between SHPO, your organization, the grants management section with Missouri State Parks and the National Park Service is required. And we will contact you to discuss this if you make it into round 2 funding. So whatever your letter states from SHPO, if you do not want to do that cultural resource survey right away and you want to wait to see if you make it into round 2, you can do the survey at that time. Okay. And then if that comes back and there's negative, at that point, if you've been recommended for funding, we will work with you to help you get through that process. Number 8, invasive species. So, do you have invasive species within your park? Will this project be addressing how these will be removed? To find out if you do have invasive species in your park, check out the Missouri Department of Agriculture's website for more information about these weeds and plants. And there is a link in your guide. So land use, number 9. Does the city or county have a land use plan for the park? Does the project fit into those land use plans? If you are on lease land, do you have a 25 years left on that lease? Number 10, lightscapes, especially night sky. Is this project impacting any dark sky areas? So there is a dark sky determination, and there are different dark sky areas throughout the country. So are you in one of those areas? Are you replacing lights to be more energy efficient lights or ones that have timers? Are you installing lights to help with security and safety of your park? Are you, if your park's in a, downtown middle or a pocket park, are you doing something in order to make sure that the lights aren't shining into people's windows? So are you putting the dampers on the top of them to help direct the light directly down instead of out? Talk about all that here. Number 11, migratory birds. Okay, this is a new report that you've not had to pull in the past, but it is now required. So to determine if there are any migratory birds within your project area or your park, you are to use the Rapid Avian Information Located, or RAIL for short. I'm going to show you how to pull this report on the next slide. Make sure to include this report within your supporting documents. The website link is located on page 40 or 63 of this guide. Number 12, recreation resources. Are you adding a new outdoor recreation opportunity to your park or to your city? The entire scope of every one of your projects should be having a positive impact on recreation, whether you are creating something new or you're renovating something to bring back new life to it. So everyone should be having a positive impact on the recreational resources. Social economics. Are there economic impacts to this project? Will this project increase the economic activity within your city? If you're doing a pool, obviously that's going to be an economic boost for you. Or are you the only maybe universal playground within a 30 to 50 mile area, so people from out of town are coming to your destination park to play in, so they're there for the day, they're buying lunch there, they're maybe going shopping while they're there. Think about that for your social economic impacts. Number 14, sound. Will there be a significant change in noise because of this project? We're not talking about the impact of noise during the construction, because we know that is what we're looking for, a long-term impact. So If you're putting a shooting range into your park, that's probably going to have an impact on sound. Okay, that's the kind of impact that might be a negative impact. What are you going to do to decrease that sound from a shooting range? Number 15. So majority of you guys and most of you will mark not present. And the only time you would mark anything but not present is if you happen to have a biosphere, a World Heritage Site, or an old growth forest within your project area. If you have one of those three, then you need to tell us what your impact will be. If not, mark not present. Number 16, water quality and quantity. Identify how you're going to be impacting water quality or quantity. Are you creating a splash pad that will recirculate the water? Are you renovating a sports field to help reduce the standing water in the field? So here's how to pull the RAIL report, or that Rapid Avian Information Locator report. So go to the website, and number 1, type the park address in the upper right-hand corner in the search bar. Number 2, click on and select the area and then draw your APE on the map. Number 3, click on Get Results. Number 4, once the species results appear at the bottom of the screen, go and click Filter Results. At the top of the new screen that will appear, under Habitat category, click on where your park is located. Most of you are going to most likely be within a town. If you cannot find something that really defines it, go ahead and click Town. Then scroll to the very bottom of that page, and under Conservation Status, you will need to click the Threatened and Endangered box, and then click over under Bird of Conservation Concern. Go down and there's a drop-down menu and select Yes for Birds of Conservation Concern. Yes, and it will say yes, bird is a BCC. And then go to the bottom right-hand side and click Apply. Once you click Apply, you will have new results. So use your mouse in the top to shift that park, to shift your APE up so where it's semi-centered there in the middle of the screen. And then you are either going to use the snippet tool or print screen to click everything that you have. My park didn't have any species, but sometimes you might get 2 or 3 species there. So go ahead and click on those, and then you're going to have to talk about, if you do have species, what you're going to do to not have an effect on those with your project. And then make sure that you print this map in color and include it with your supporting documentation. So number 17, so water, coastal barrier resources, and coastal zones, everyone will be marking not present. Number 18, marinas. So if you are not doing a marina or not working in a lake, you are going to mark not present in your APE. If you are working in a lake or doing a marina, do you know if your project is eligible for the Dingell-Johnson or Wallet-Bracks Act funding? You need to find that out and write your answer there. And there's the website to go check. And that link is also in your guide. For number 19, water, stream flow, and characteristics. So you want to check out the EPA Stormwater Discharge for Construction Activity website to learn more about permits that you might need to have if you are going to be affecting or have a stream within your project area. The links can be found on page 41 or Adobe page 64. So you want to also look at, will you be disturbing more than 1 acre of land with this project? Or is this by chance, are you in phase 1 of 2 to 3 phases? And if so, will this entire project, so phase 1 through 3, affect more than an acre? If your entire project throughout the phases are going to affect more than 1 acre, then you need to look to see if you need to get a land disturbance permit from Missouri DNR. If you need a land disturbance permit from Missouri DNR, you might check your county, because a lot of counties also have their own land disturbance permit. So check with your county to make sure that you don't, to see if you need a permit from them as well. All permits must also then be listed in a later question. Next, we're going to look at water, wetlands, and floodplains. Both of these maps are required. And in the next slides, I'm going to show you how to pull this. And that floodplain map is the same one that you had in an earlier section. We only need to pull the map one time. And then lastly, we have soil survey and prime farmland. These are two different maps. I'm going to show you how to pull them next. And the best part about these two maps, they are pulled from the same website. Okay, so one website and you'll pull two maps at one time. And I'll show you all that here very shortly. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the wetland map. The link to the website is located on page 41 or 64 of the guide. Once at the website, click on the wetland mapper in the type, and then once you get to that new page, in the top right hand corner, click on find location and then type the address and hit submit. Once the map is pulled up, zoom in on the map so that you make sure that you can see some of the surrounding areas, but you want to be able to make sure your entire park is within, or your entire, if it's too large of a park, at least your area, your APE is within there. Center your APE in the center of the screen, and then in the top right hand corner, click print. Type in the name of the project from question 54 and then click print again. You will need to wait a few minutes and then your print job should appear in blue. Click on the blue print job. The PDF should open in another screen. Click download at the top of the page, save the map to your computer, and print it in color. Your map should look just like this. Print the map in color and then draw your APE on the map, either by hand or using Adobe. If there are any wetlands from the legend marked within your APE, or one that you might have effect on, so if it's right outside your APE, you will need to contact the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to see if you're going to need a 401 or a 404 permit. Okay, there is template letters for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on page 21 and 44 of the, or Adobe page 44 of the guide. If you have a ravine or stream that is just outside that project area, once again, go ahead and contact them to let them know and see if you're going to be affecting it by having it, is your project going to run off and into that stream. Now we're going to look at the floodplain map. Remember, you need this map also to answer question 18 of your application. The link to the website can be located on page 26 or Adobe page 49 of the guide. So in the screen, you're going to start with typing the address of the park and press search. Give it a few minutes. This one takes a while for the map to appear. Once it does appear, zoom in on your park. If the red pin is not in the correct location, so you want that red pin that's on the map, basically in the center of your APE, go ahead, click it once, it will disappear. Move it to the center of your APE, and then click it again, and it should appear on the screen. Center that pin in the middle of the screen. Then click on Dynamic Map and wait. A new screen will appear with a PDF of the park. Click the download button and save it to your computer. If you see this yellow box at the top of the page, it indicates that these directions are not going to work for you. Instead, type in the address as before, and when you see the map, it will be zoomed way out, okay? Directly above the map on the right-hand side, click on a button that says Go to NFHL Viewer. It takes you to a new screen, and follow the directions on the screen to get the map. Download it, download the PDF, and print it in color. Here's an example of what your map will look like. Print in color and either hand draw your project area or use Adobe to draw your project area before you print it. If you have floodplain within the project area or just outside the area, go ahead and contact FEMA to see what you need to do and to see if you need any type of permits. You should also contact your local floodplain administrator to see if you need any permits from the county. Make sure you include all this correspondence from the federal agencies and these maps with your supporting documentation. Now we're going to look at the soil and farmland maps. These maps are pulled, like I said, from the same website. You will, if you have two separate project areas, this is one of those ones where you're going to have to print two maps because this zooms in on your APE. So the link can be found on page 41 or Adobe page 64 of the guide. If your website does not open to the Area of Interest tab, go ahead and click on it at the top of the screen. Once there, open up the Address tab and type the address of the park and click View. Once there, open up, so then once you have it zoomed over, click on the hand to move the park into the center of the screen. Use the plus and minus symbol to zoom in and out on your project area. Once you are zoomed in on your project area, use the AOI button to draw around the project area. You want to make sure you're including your entire APE in this drawing. Double click it to stop drawing. Once you double click the screen, we'll zoom really close in and you'll see blue lines through it. And that's showing that's the area it's going to be reviewing. If the blue lines are correct, click on the Soil Map tab at the top of the page. A new screen will pull up and will show the soil breakdown. At the top right is a button that says Printable Version. Click on it. A new screen will appear, and click on the download button and save that PDF to your file so that you can print it in color. And it's going to look very similar to this. This is what basically all 3 pages look like. So you want to print all 3 pages and include all 3 pages with your supporting documentation. Before you leave that website, go back to the top of your computer to the screen, and you should have a tab on the top that says Base of the Soil and Farmland Map. Oh, it will say Soil Data Explorer, sorry. On the left side, up under Land Classifications, click on it, and then click on Farmland Classification. Click on the Review Rating, And this will once again take you to a new screen and you should download the PDF. This is an example of what the farmland map should look like. It's going to be about 5 pages. 1 will be the map, 3 pages will be legend, and then 1 will have the classification. Print all 5 pages in color and submit with your supporting documentation. Like I said, if you have more than 1 APE in your park, go back to the main page, click on the area of interest and clear the AOI, and then center around the new project and redo all these steps again. We're going to go to question 76, which is table 2. This is a list of mandatory impact criteria that preclude the use of any category exclusion. So if you answer yes for any of these mandatory criteria, you will be required to do an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement, regardless of how you answered table 1. So anything that is not a no here means that you will not qualify for CE. Doesn't mean your project can't still occur. You're just going to have more steps that you're going to be following. Question 77, ask if there are any prior environmental reviews completed on this specific project, or if this site pursuant to the National Environment Policy Act. So if you have had an environmental review done on this project area, mark yes, tell us what the findings were, and include that with your supporting documents. The purpose of this question is to make sure that we're not re-reviewing something that's already been reviewed. So if you had the same project area, the entire project area was also, say, done for recreational trail program grant, and you cleared all this area for that, you should let us know that and then give us those findings from Federal Highway so that we can include it, so we're not having to redo everything. Question 78 asks you to provide an explanation of any negative or unknown impacts identified in table 1 and any questions that you marked yes in table 2. Please be specific as possible of why you marked them negative and how you're going to go back and mitigate those issues. Okay. So if you had a letter that said from one of your federal agency that said, in order to, mitigate this issue, this is what you need to do to make it more of a positive impact, then put that mitigation here. If you mark probably more than 3 boxes with negative impacts or unknown impacts, you will probably need to provide a separate sheet of paper to explain your answers. So if you have more than that, just use another sheet and that's fine. 79 asks how the information identified in the table was derived and what sources of data were used to justify the impact. Explain how you arrived at your answers to the questions. So you're going to list your maps and your websites used. So an example, if you sent letters to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers asking about jurisdictional waterways that you discovered in your project area, you'll want to explain that you sent letters and and that you received a response. You want to make sure that you basically here are just going to do a list of the websites and the maps that you pulled. So you can tell me, we pulled the IPAC, the Missouri Heritage, the farmland map, the wetland map, the hazardous waste, the rail. You're going to list specifics and then tell me who you wrote letters to and who you got responses back from. Number 8 asks you to list who contributed to filling out this environmental resource survey from your agency. Provide us the name and the title of anyone from your agency that helped fill out this. If you hire a firm to do it, put the firm down that you hired and who filled it out. If your RPC helped, put them down. You do not want to include the names of the people from the federal agency that you contacted, okay? They are not the ones who filled this out. Unless someone from a federal agency helped you answer every single one of these questions, their name doesn't need to be here, okay? We also want you to tell us what experience that person has in doing a NEPA review. Remember, if you do not have the expertise or feel that you cannot do this, you can hire some firm or work with your RPC to complete this, and that can all be a pre-award cost. 81 asks you to provide a list of all federal, state, and local permits and approvals needed for this project and explain their purpose and statute. So on page 42 and 43, or Adobe page 65 and 66 of Appendix B, there are links to some of the most common permits that you may be required to get for your project. So the biggest one is if you're disturbing more than 1 acre, you need a land disturbance permit. You would want to go in there and look and see what you need to do for that. You could also need a 404 or 401 permit if you're interfering with jurisdictional waterways, based on what you hear back from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. You should contact your county. You should contact your city to see what types, if you're in a floodplain, if you, talk to your floodplain administrator. Do you have building codes that you're going to need building permits? All those permits, anything that you need has to be here. Okay. And it's very important to make sure that you have all the federal permits that you need in order to construct this project listed in this question. Question 62 asks if a phase 1 culture resource survey with shovel testing has been conducted within the project area. If no, describe any construction plan for this project. Include the surface depths, and I want you to think like an archaeologist. Is the area already disturbed? How deep will you be digging? Are you using heavy equipment? Will you be using soil from someplace else to fill it in? Or are you removing soil from this site, and where are you putting it? If you have a playground with mulch sitting on the ground right now, and you're replacing that mulch with pour and play, talk about how deep you're going to have to dig down in that dirt to put the drainage system in for your pour and play. Even if you're doing mulch and you're not going to just set it on the ground anymore, you're going to put drainage underneath of it. Talk about how deep you're digging into that ground. How deep are those poles going into the ground? How deep are you burying electrical or water or sewer pipes if you're doing a bathroom? Think like that. If you answer yes, go ahead and include that culture resource survey with your supporting documents. The biggest hint here, people, and this is the one that's missed most often, no matter which one of these boxes you guys check, you will be writing an answer down below. Okay? So just because you wrote no doesn't mean you don't need an answer. There still needs to be an answer in this question. So that is the conclusion of the environmental section review. Remember, 2 hard copies of the entire application plus all supporting documents must be postmarked or received by us by November 14th. The earlier you get it in, the better. Please make sure that your application is signed. So we're going to go ahead and stop our presentation.